And actually, it's not just Andres and Cassie, but all of my colleagues that have defended their master's projects the last 2 days. Awesome job, everyone. It's an honor to be standing in front of you all today. I'm excited to share my master's project with you all. My name is Stephanie Aubert. The focus of my project was on the preliminary property design and development of Coldharbour Ranch. Before I dive into my project, I'm going to provide some background that will give you all some context to the work that I did the past year and a half. So I've been in partnership with Coldharbour Institute for the past year and a half. Coldharbour Institute is a product of two local, recently merged organizations, the Office of Resource Efficiency and Coldharbour Sustainable Living Center. They merged at the end of 2014. Coldharbour Institute promotes resilient living practices for a changing world through education, research, experimentation, partnerships, and the integration of environmental, social, and economic solutions. In late 2015, a collective 334-acre property was donated to Coldharbour Institute by Butch and Judy Clark. The property is known lovingly as the Coldharbour Ranch, and it is approximately 7 miles east of town, with parcels both north and south of Highway 50, with Colorado Route 114 as the easternmost boundary of the property. So 243 of the total 334 acres are under a conservation easement. Conservation easement is a voluntary agreement between a landowner and either a land trust or a governmental agency. The general purpose of limiting the uses of land for conservation purposes. The specific program that the 243 acres is enrolled under is through the Natural Resource Conservation Services, NRCS, Wetlands Reserve Program. Of the developable property, there's one 12.5 acre parcel that has been known as the Coldharbour Homestead. And this is the property of interest for my project, and it will serve as the future headquarters of Coldharbour Institute. And though the conservation easement property is limited in what we can do, for instance, it's not developable, we don't see it as a limitation, but as a complementary asset to the homestead property. Within the easement land, there exists many rich opportunities in sustainable land management practices, habitat restoration, as well as partnerships with various agencies that we already have in the works. So through my past experience and interest in environmental planning, ecological design, and permaculture, I was immediately intrigued by the opportunity or the potential to play a role in the property design and development of the Coldharbour land. So that's my first objective for my project from the very beginning, was to facilitate a site plan for the Coldharbour Institute headquarters, which is that 12.5 acre parcel that I showed you guys a few minutes ago. In addition to the facilitating the site design, because the site design is all well and good, but it's pretty useless without a plan of attack or a plan of implementation. My second objective was to consolidate over a dozen county and state regulatory documents into a comprehensive guide to next steps for the property. And the intention is that this will serve as a tool for the board and staff of Coldharbour Institute into the future. student years ago, I was introduced to the concept of a charrette, and it was in a design charrette, and it was in an environmental planning class. From the very beginning of my project, in my involvement with the site design, I was trying to figure out the best way to go about coming up with a collaborative site design for the property. And it dawned on me one afternoon, when I was thinking too hard, that a charrette would serve as an excellent tool for the site design process. A design charrette is an intensive, collaborative design process that generally takes course over 4 to 7 days, and it engages multiple stakeholders. It's really well suited for this particular project because Coldharbour Institute has many stakeholders, and these stakeholders share a diversity of perspectives. So first I had to convince the staff and board that a charrette was the way that we should go, and once I had their buy-in, I was off to Portland, Oregon, and I received training in charrette facilitation through the National Charrette Institute. As a result, I returned to the Valley with the knowledge to facilitate a charrette, and I adapted it to best suit our community and the project site itself. And I should note that charrettes generally are a huge resource drain. They take upwards of $20,000 to over $100,000 because you bring in lots of experts. So I had to be resourceful and use my past experience and what I learned from the facilitation to adapt the process to our community. So the first step to planning the charrette was to come up with or to organize a charrette team. Charrette team consisted of Coldharbour Institute staff, students, and volunteers from the community, and I couldn't have done it without them. So to keep us focused and keep the design charrette relevant to Coldharbour Institute mission and values as well as the property itself, the charrette team first came up with 10 guiding principles, and we wanted to use this as a tool to communicate the broader vision for the site design to various stakeholders and community members, but we also were trying to be careful to not limit creativity because we really wanted to hear everyone's ideas. A few of these principles are especially relevant to our panel topic today in striving to create culturally diverse landscapes. So I'm going to touch upon a few of these. Sustainable agriculture. Food brings us all together because everyone eats. Can't argue against that. Food and culture often go hand in hand. Many cultures have built themselves on an agricultural foundation. Believe it or not, we can grow a lot of food in this valley. Some of us have first-hand experience. And as Cassidy argued, one way to improve community resilience is through food sovereignty. So the Coldharbour Institute headquarters will serve as a setting for growing both food and the knowledge necessary to reach food sovereignty in the Gunnison Valley. Will serve as a place where people can grow, prepare, and eat food together. The Coldharbour headquarters will provide opportunities for various ages, cultures, academic disciplines, lifestyles, political beliefs to cultivate creativity together. Art is a universal language. You can speak different verbal languages and still communicate successfully through art. Creating together offers opportunities for all of us to understand and appreciate each and one of our unique differences. Culture. The Coldharbour Institute headquarters will serve as a place to celebrate culture. When visiting the site, people will have the opportunity to exchange cultural knowledge, stories, food, and as Cassidy mentioned earlier, the importance of traditions. People can share their traditions. Coldharbour Institute will do this by hosting workshops, events, and various other types of programming. And it's arguable that each and every one of us in this room have something to teach one another about our own culture and traditions. Lastly that I'm going to touch upon is community. Coldharbour Institute promotes robust alliances with community members in various entities, including government, businesses, and other local nonprofit organizations. Through these, we are able to integrate a diversity of perspectives into the environmental movement. We expect that by leading through example, partnerships will lead to measurable increases in both community sustainability and sustainable living practices and community resilience. And that goes for this valley, neighboring regions, and beyond. So keeping these principles in mind, the ones that I at least got to touch upon, I facilitated a 5-day charrette process for the 12.5-acre Coldharbour homestead. We called it the design charrette because it was a little bit easier to communicate the idea to people that way. But we started with a kickoff party the first night of the charrette. We had over 100 attendees to the event, and they were introduced to the property, my project, the guiding principles, as well as the charrette process itself before they were let loose into small groups to share their own visions, ideas, and concerns related to the property. Afterwards, the charrette team got busy synthesizing all of the ideas that came through the event. And what we did as a group, we created 6 alternative design concepts for the Coldharbour property. Then we invited everyone back a few days later to come check out the 6 alternatives and provide feedback on things they liked and they didn't like for each of the 6 designs. In addition, we also had several private meetings with individual stakeholders. Outcomes for the charrette include, there were over 400 individual ideas shared over the course of 500 volunteer hours that were spent by the charrette team, stakeholders, community members, and various experts. Following this, take just a sip of water here. The charrette team synthesized everything that they heard into the final outcome. This is the Coldharbour Ranch Conceptual Site Plan. So this site plan, as well as the 6 alternative designs that were collaborated on before the end of the charrette, each had 10 critical elements that were defined by the charrette team after the kickoff. So each plan had the 10 same components, but they were in different orientation. And this is what we came up with. I used various outlets to engage as many people as possible in the charrette process. This included a monthly newsletter that actually I gained followers. I think I ended up with 109 subscribers to the newsletter. Also, a project website, Chelsea, was the one that inspired me to do a website, and it was a really great way for me to kind of synthesize my own thoughts as I move forward, and that's available for all of you today. I also utilized social media like Facebook page. I distributed posters around the valley to different businesses, as well as a radio ad and a small little notice in the shopper, the Gunnison shopper. Naturally, there were barriers. Oops, sorry. So actually, I really wanted to touch upon this one really exciting way that we engaged as many people as possible. We held a Coldharbour Kids Camp in conjunction with the design shop, and this was a way to engage parents with young children. And the programming that we had at the kids camp actually was in line with the vision and the mission of Coldharbour, so it was a really nice way to reach out to all ages. Barriers to engaging people, we weren't able to mobilize everyone that we wanted to due to language barriers, cultural barriers, and then scheduling conflicts. There's a lot going on. It's really hard to squeeze everything in, even if you're interested. Next steps. Well, you saw the site design. What we would really like to do is get the site design from paper to on the property. So the big next step for that is engaging in the land use change process with the Gunnison County Community Development Department. We are already in conversation with them, and we are well on our way to that critical first step. Finally, the Coldharbour headquarters will serve as a place to facilitate the experiences suggested by all of us today to serve underserved populations. To find out more, I have my business card is actually available at our resource table. All three of us have resources available, so we hope you can check them out. You can check out my website. There was a great video created surrounding the SHREP process. Thank you all for being here. Some of you might see your name on this board. It has been an honor. And I think that just brings us to questions.
Can you go back a couple slides?
Absolutely.
To the plan?
Sure.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult to see.
Can you just walk us through it just a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Okay. Now, I will say that this is a conceptual plan. There's some of the critical components integrated in here. It's not as detailed as to where the gardens are placed.
If you go back to the other slide, it's a little
Bigger.
bit bigger.
Ah, yes. Yes. And I actually do have this on my website because in it you can see the key a little bit better. So please check it out. Ellen Patton digitally rendered this site plan. So what we have here, start to the southeast or southwest corner, our wastewater treatment plant. 18, so this is all designated agricultural space. Right here you see, this is we're calling it, we don't know how the name yet, but Sustainable Demonstration Village. Series of 6 or so small cottages that each have different building materials, natural building materials, that can be used for workshops and demonstration of the various building techniques in the valley. A community bath and kitchen house, a yurt. We have a studio/workshop space with a build yard, a greenhouse and another workspace to keep people out of the way when there's programming going on so people can work, maintain the facility. The historic barn, the historic farmhouse, and then the addition that was built in the late 80s, started being constructed in the late 80s. We also have our parking infrastructure and fire loop/emergency vehicle, and it's a way for buses. We want to serve as many groups as possible to get around the property. Is there anything I missed?
Food, trees. Food, renewable energy, trees. Trees.
Oh, renewable energy, yes. So this is not included in this plan because we are still assessing the various types of alternative energy options. Originally, we did have it on the site, like we had wind generation, but we decided that we're going to leave that off because we would like to bring in a consultant to really nail that. And that might actually be a project, a future master's project or undergrad project. And then food, this is all agricultural space here. And then actually currently right here is being cultivated. So the plants are already starting on the ground.
Trees, orchard, trees, orchard.
Sure, we haven't located, we're probably thinking in this region. We're gonna have some animal husbandry and some orchard. We're also gonna, I think, expand the existing vegetative border along Highway 50. Okay, Chelsea, I know
Sorry. You mentioned how much resources and expenses go into designing a charrette. How did you manage the charrette in a most efficient way within your budget while maximizing professional feedback? How did you prioritize the different options?
that's an excellent question. And first I want to give a big shout out to the Haley Fund because that let us actually have food for all of our attendees, and that was one way to get people engaged. But also, can't emphasize the importance of community and relationships. It was relationships. We leveraged relationships with experts. We had engineers on the board. We had architects. We had students. And so the charrette team put our heads together. We said, we figured out what our goals were, what our objectives were, our guiding principles, and then we figured out, what resources we already had as we're building this organization to leverage. But thank you, that's a great question.
Will there be an opportunity for artists in the community to get their hands on the amount of old farm equipment that is out there?
That's, okay, so that's a great question. It's valuable stuff. We take a lot of pride in the historic integrity of the property, and there's a lot of really great tools on the property, and we think we're gonna kind of turn it into a museum.
Okay.
But art is absolutely going to be integrated into the programming. It's a little bit out of the scope of my project, but there's already a lot of conversations with diverse artists with diverse media going on. So great resources on there.
Will do.
Okay. Chevy.
When will the implementation of design start on this, and how can undergrads get involved?
Excellent. That's a great question. We're actually taking off on phase 1 this summer already. We hope to get a yurt on the ground, to have some structure, some protection from the weather, as well as, at the very least, we're going to get porta-johns out there for people. And I would say, and I don't want to dodge her question, and I don't want to put Suzanne on the spot, but I think she is well aware of all the different opportunities. And I must say, if you have an idea to bring forward, please share it with us.
And I would just say, if you're taking EGOS 350 in the fall, look into that as your service project with Dr. Selm. If you're taking EGOS 400 in the spring, look into it as your project with Dr. Clark. If you're involved with the Sustainability Coalition, why not connect the coalition with Coldharbour? There's a lot of structural gateways into this.
A lot of
so you're not kind of
synergies.
on your own.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, hope you're excited about it. As excited as I am. Oh, okay, and sorry. Okay, so, moving on. Oops. Who made these things? Ugh, gosh, I'm horrible. Oh. How embarrassing. I am so sorry. This is my dad's green screen, if you guys are wondering. Okay, so, also, Mish, thank you for all the wonderful photos. Now, on to our cross-cutting question section. Feel free to use these questions, these topics, as a framework to inform your own questions, but if you have any other burning questions that you'd like to ask any of us individually or as a group, now is the time to do so. Again, please check out our resources on our table here on your way out, and I'm going to go sit with my colleagues.